At exactly 3:17 a.m., some doors should never be opened. From a haunted apartment room and a cursed house hidden in the fog, to a terrifying night bus crossing a deadly mountain pass, these true horror stories reveal what happens when something unknown knocks in the middle of the night. If you hear 3 knocks at your door at 3:17, never answer. Prepare yourself for terrifying paranormal encounters, ghost sightings, and chilling real-life horror stories that will keep you awake long after midnight. Story 1. The Knocking at Room 402. I heard this story from Hung, a man who once worked as a night security guard at an old apartment building on the outskirts of Saigon. The building had been constructed in the 1990s. The walls had faded with age, and the hallways always smelled of dampness and cheap floor cleaner. Hung said there was one apartment in that building that had been abandoned for a very long time, room 402. The former owner of the room was a woman named Mai. She lived alone, rarely talked to anyone, and usually came home very late at night. The neighbors only remembered that she had a habit of hanging a small wind chime outside her door. Whenever the wind blew through the hallway, the chime would make a faint jingling sound. One stormy night, Mai called the security office at 3:17 a.m. Her voice was trembling. "Sir, someone is standing outside my door." The old security guard asked, "Who is it? Someone you know?" Mai replied, "No, it's not saying anything. It only knocks on the door. Exactly 3 knocks at a time." The guard checked the hallway camera on the 4th floor, but the screen showed only white static. He grabbed a flashlight and went upstairs. When he arrived, the hallway was completely empty. Only the wind chime outside room 402 was swaying, even though the hallway windows were tightly shut. He knocked on Mai's door. No one answered. The next morning, the neighbors discovered that the door to room 402 was slightly open. Mai was lying dead inside, her eyes wide open, staring toward the door. The strange thing was that the lock had not been broken. The 4th floor camera had malfunctioned from 3:17 to 3:25. After that incident, the apartment was abandoned. Many years later, Hung was hired as the new security guard. On his first day, the manager only told him one thing. If room 402 ever calls the security office at night, don't go upstairs, and if someone knocks on the security room door at 3:17, never open it. Hung thought they were just trying to scare the new guy, so he laughed it off. Then, during his 3rd week, it happened. That night, the rain was pouring heavily. Around 3 a.m., the entire building was almost silent. Hung was sitting in the security office when the desk phone rang. He looked at the clock. 3:17. On the other end was a woman's faint voice. "Sir, someone is standing outside my door." Hung felt a chill run down his spine. He asked, "Who is this?" The voice answered, "Room 402. At that exact moment, 3 knocks came from outside the security office door. Knock, knock, knock. Hung froze in place. The glass door in front of him was covered with condensation from the rain outside, and everything beyond it was pitch black. He could not see who was standing there. Then came another 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Remembering the manager's warning, he did not dare open the door. He turned off the light in the office and crouched down behind the desk. The knocking stopped. A moment later, the desk phone rang again. Hung did not answer, but the phone kept ringing over and over, as if the caller knew he was still there. Around 4 a.m., everything suddenly became silent. The next morning, Hung checked the security cameras. At exactly 3:17, every screen turned to white static, but one frame had frozen right before the signal disappeared. In that frame, a woman was standing in front of the security office door with her head lowered. Her long hair covered her face. In her hand was a small wind chime. After that night, Hung quit his job, but before leaving, he said that every now and then, whenever the clock struck 3:17, his phone would still receive a call from an unknown number. He had never answered it, because he was afraid the voice on the other end would say again, "Sir, please open the door for me." Story 2. The House at the End of the Alley. In Dalat, there was a small house located at the end of a steep alley, where the night fog was often so thick that people could not clearly see each other from only a few meters away. That house was once rented by a young married couple to open a homestay. The husband's name was Kwan, and his wife was Lin. They moved in at the beginning of the rainy season. The owner of the house was an elderly woman who rarely spoke. When she handed them the keys, she only warned them, "No matter who knocks at the door at night, don't open it, especially at 3:17. Kwan laughed and asked, "Why exactly 3:17? The old woman stared at him for a long moment before saying, "Because that is the hour when the dead remember the way home." The couple did not believe her. They thought it was just an old person's superstition. During the first month, everything was normal. Guests who stayed there all complimented the house for being beautiful, quiet, and having an old-fashioned charm. But one night, Lin heard knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. She opened her eyes. The digital clock beside the bed showed 3:17. Lin shook her husband awake. Kwan picked up his phone and checked the front door camera, but the screen showed nothing but darkness. He assumed a guest had returned late and was about to go downstairs to open the door. Lin grabbed his hand. "Don't, the owner warned us." The knocking came again. This time, accompanied by a very soft voice. "Please let me in, I'm so cold." The voice sounded like that of an older woman. Kwan looked through the second-floor window. In the white fog, he saw a figure standing outside the gate. The person was wearing an old raincoat with her head lowered. Kwan was about to ask who it was, but Lin covered his mouth. The two of them sat silently until morning. When daylight came, they opened the door to check outside. In front of the gate were muddy trails stretching from the alley toward the house. The terrifying thing was that the marks did not look like footprints. They looked like traces left by something being dragged across the ground. A few days later, Kwan asked the neighbors about it. An old man who sold coffee nearby told him that the house had once belonged to a woman who died during the night. Her son had thrown her out of the house during a cold, rainy evening. She stood outside knocking on the door for hours, but no one opened it. The next morning, she was found dead in front of the gate. Her estimated time of death was recorded as around 3:17 a.m. From then on, during rainy nights, tenants would hear knocking at the door. Those who refused to open it were only disturbed, but anyone who opened the door would later encounter terrible things. After hearing the story, Kwan was still skeptical. He believed the neighbors were only telling ghost stories to scare renters. Until the 27th night. That night, the homestay had a young couple staying there. Around 3 a.m., the indoor camera detected movement. Kwan checked his phone and saw the front door trembling slightly. 3:17. The knocking became more violent than ever. Knock, 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 knock. Then a voice spoke. "Open the door, mother is home." Kwan turned pale. Lin trembled as she held onto him. Suddenly, the sound of a lock turning came from downstairs in the living room. One of the guests had woken up. Kwan ran down the stairs shouting, "Don't open it." But it was too late. The door swung open. Fog flooded into the house like cold smoke. The guest stood frozen at the doorway. Staring outside, Kwan only had time to see a skinny, pale hand resting on the young man's shoulder. Then the power went out. When the lights came back on, the guest had disappeared. The front door remained open. Outside in the yard, only the young man's sandals lay upside down, covered in mud. The police searched for 3 days but never found the missing person. After that incident, Lin and Kwan moved out immediately. But before leaving, Lin noticed new scratch marks on the wooden door, clawed from the outside inward. Below the scratches was a faint line written as if with mud. "Mother is still standing here." The house was abandoned afterward. People in the alley said that on rainy nights, they could still hear knocking coming from inside the house. But the strange thing was that the house had been locked shut. No one lived there anymore. Yet at exactly 3:17, people could still hear a woman whispering behind the door, "Please let me in." Story 3. Night Bus 317. This story was told by a bus driver named Tam. He used to drive the overnight route from central Vietnam to Saigon. The route number was 317, departing at 9 p.m. and usually passing through a deserted mountain pass around 3 a.m. Older drivers at the station once warned him, If you're driving Route 317 and see someone waving at the bus at 317, don't stop. Whether it's a woman, a child, or someone injured, never open the door. Tam asked why. The other driver only replied, because no living person stands there at that hour. At first, Tam did not believe it. He had been driving for many years, had seen accidents, and had encountered people asking for rides in the middle of the night. So he did not want to abandon anyone. One night in July, his bus carried 18 passengers. It was drizzling lightly, and fog covered the road. As the bus began climbing the pass, the clock on the dashboard turned to 3:17. At that exact moment, the assistant driver quietly said, "Brother Tam, there's someone ahead." Under the headlights stood a woman in white at the roadside. She was holding a baby in her arms. She waved slowly at the bus with her head lowered. Tam instinctively slowed down. The assistant driver immediately grabbed his arm. "Don't stop." But from the back of the bus, an older passenger spoke up. "Poor thing, standing out there in the rain like that. Let her get on." The woman outside continued waving slowly. Tam hesitated, but as the bus passed by her, the baby in her arms suddenly raised its head. Its face was pale white. It was smiling, but its eyes were completely empty. Tam slammed on the gas pedal and sped away. Several passengers shouted because of the sudden acceleration. The assistant driver looked into the rearview mirror and instantly turned pale. The woman was running after the bus. Not running normally. She was gliding across the road, her white clothes fluttering wildly, still holding the baby, moving almost as fast as the bus itself. Then knocking echoed from the side of the bus. Knock, knock, knock. The entire bus fell silent. A passenger sitting near the window screamed. Outside the glass, the woman's face was pressed against the window. Her wet hair clung to her face as her lips moved slowly as if whispering. "Open the door." The assistant driver pulled the curtain shut and continuously muttered Buddhist prayers. Tam no longer dared look into the rearview mirror. He only gripped the steering wheel tightly and drove through the rest of the mountain pass. When the bus finally descended from the pass, the knocking disappeared. But the story was not over. Around 4 a.m., one passenger noticed small muddy handprints on the rear door window. The terrifying thing was that the handprints were not on the outside. They were on the inside of the glass, as if the baby had somehow gotten onto the bus. Everyone searched the entire bus but found nothing. Only the back row had one empty seat, even though no one had been sitting there before. On the seat was a wet stain, ice cold, carrying the smell of old mud. After the trip, Tam asked the older drivers again. They told him that many years earlier, a terrible accident had occurred on that mountain pass. A passenger bus had lost control and plunged into a ravine at 3:17 a.m. Among the dead was a woman holding a small child. When rescuers arrived, they found her body near the bus door, her hand still gripping the handle as if she had tried to open the door to escape. Since then, any bus passing through that mountain pass at exactly 3:17 might encounter her. If the driver refused to stop, the bus would be knocked on. If the driver opened the door, the bus would gain one extra passenger. And when the bus reached its destination, one living passenger would certainly be missing. Tam quit driving Route 317 after that night. But many years later, he still kept a strange habit. Whenever it was 3:17 a.m., even while sleeping deeply, he would suddenly wake up and check the doors of his house. His wife once asked him why. He only said, "I'm afraid someone is standing outside." One night, his wife woke up because she heard knocking at the door. Knock, knock, knock. She looked at the clock. 3:17. Tam was sitting at the edge of the bed, his face pale, staring fixedly toward the bedroom door. From outside in the hallway came the voice of a child. "Mister, please open the door so my mother and I can come in."
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.